What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we've talked about issues with the eShop quite a bit in the past, but now a very strange issue is popping up. A new game just shows up on the eShop the other day, and it's actually ripping off Nintendo. It's Nintendo Store, and this game is ripping off assets, specifically music, from Nintendo. We're going to go over that situation. It's very strange. Also, a massive leak hit Assassin's Creed Valhalla yesterday. Ubisoft went crazy ripping videos down. It's a bit too late. We had talked about how there was no gameplay footage at the Xbox event a few months ago. It was like 30 seconds. Looks like 30 minutes of gameplay footage actually just leaked out online. And then also, a lot of you have asked about Doom Eternal on the Switch. I've even been wondering what's going on with it, but we did get an update. We're going to go over all of that and more today, guys. As always, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're brand new here, hit the red subscribe button down below as we head towards 500,000 subscribers. And we're going to start today with Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition on PC. It popped up on Steam. You can pre-purchase it. It is coming out August 7th, and it is at the price of $49.99. And yeah, that is a bit more than what you can get it now on the PlayStation 4. I've seen it pop up for anywhere from 10 to 20 bucks on the PlayStation 4. Obviously, when it first came out, it was 60, and then there was DLC and stuff as well that was tacked onto that. So, like, you probably paid more for it on PS4 over time if you picked it up day one. But, of course, we have quite a few improvements going to PC, ultra-wide support, ultra settings, and 60 frames per second. And it looks like, based on what was seen in a screenshot, original settings, quote-unquote, was a preset at medium, which is making everyone believe now that medium settings were used for the PlayStation 4 version, which again makes me wonder, what is this game going to look like at 4K, ultra settings, 60 frames per second? It's going to look ridiculous. Anyway, when it did go up on Steam, jumped to the top of the Steam sales charts, and that does make you wonder what Sony's thinking when they see that. I mean, maybe it's time for God of War to come over and get that ultra settings at 4K and 60 frames per second treatment. I wouldn't mind that. Oh, and Test Drive fans, you can finally look forward to something in the Test Drive series tomorrow. That's right. This was tweeted out the other day, and it says, "We're back." That's from NotCon Connect, 7th of July, so it'll be tomorrow from the Test Drive account on Twitter. And what's happening here is this kind of was very quiet, I'd say, over the past few years, but NotCon had actually acquired the IP for Test Drive from Atari. They had said that they would play around with the idea of rebooting the series, and then it kind of went quiet. And honestly, I didn't know if it would really happen, but it seems like they've been working on it in this time, and they're finally going to show us what they have in mind for Test Drive, the series now going forward. It's been a while. Like, Test Drive Unlimited 2 was okay. I liked the first Test Drive Unlimited when that came out on the 360. That was a long time ago. Was that 2006? I know it's been 9 years since Test Drive Unlimited 2. There was another game that came out like the following year for Test Drive, but like no one really talks about that one as much. So it's been a while. I am excited at the idea of a reboot of the series, just to see what they have in mind. Open world, track-based, maybe more or less sectioned off parts of a city. There's a lot of things they can do here, but I am interested because they obviously wanted that IP for a reason. Maybe they had an idea as to what they could do with the series, but hey, Test Drive fans, look forward to tomorrow because we're going to see a new one. Also, if there's anyone else out there, like myself, that put money in for that Atari VCS Indiegogo, guess what? We can look forward to it, apparently. At least that's what happened in an email that they sent me pretty recently. Check this out. Not only does it say that they will be delivering them guaranteed by December 24th, they'll say it's $390, which is a little funny because you can be like, oh, should I get, possibly a PlayStation 5, or do I get the Atari VCS? I'm a little surprised that they are just guaranteeing this, considering they haven't told me anything about mine that's going to apparently show up before then. I'm supposed to be getting it before it goes to the public, and that would be December 24th, it seems, because they're asking for pre-orders. So I might actually get my Atari VCS this holiday. I gotta say, I'm a little surprised. We'll see. We'll see how that works out. But the fact they're taking $390 worth of pre-orders right now would tell me that they should be confident, or who knows, maybe put that money in and then, oh, wait, it's delayed again. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with this eShop game that really started making the rounds the other day when it was discovered that they are using music from The Legend of Zelda. Yes, that's right. This game that just popped up on the eShop, which, by the way, looks terrible. Oh, it looks so bad. It's called Final Sword, and the last I checked, it's still up on the eShop. It goes for the low price of $17.10. Very common pricing there for this game, but this is what happens with the eShop. Tons of games just get like scattershot onto the eShop. I mean, we're talking like at times 15, 20 games in a day will just pop up, and of course, everything moves down just in the recent releases category, and it's just constantly flowing with, at times, I mean, just look at it sometimes, just super low quality games. This is no exception. It looks very, very bad. It's by Hup Games, which, if you check, this is the only game by them. Shocker, surprise, right? Yes. But here, tell you what, why don't you have a listen, as we had a person on Twitter actually clip it and post it up. Yep, some of you may recognize that as Zelda's Lullaby, and they are apparently just using it in the background of their game. It seems like that just plays while you're going through certain parts of it, just straight up copy and paste it over. We see a lot of these quick flip games on the Switch, specifically on the eShop. The curation is not great on there. I don't know. What's strange to me is you figure that there would have been some sort of certification with this game. I don't think Nintendo really would go through every single game and play through them to see, but it does make you wonder about a lot of things slipping through the cracks, because Nintendo is very protective of their IPs, right? And they certainly don't want anyone using any of the assets from their games to create other games that they're then going to sell on Nintendo's own eShop. But the fact that we see Nintendo go after just fan projects that are not being sold at all, they're just being given away at times just for the passion of the idea of, creating these games, it is a little strange that they aren't having this game pulled down or just let it onto the eShop at all. Like, it's very weird. It definitely shows you how much they're paying attention to some of the games showing up. This was going to happen eventually because they don't really take it too seriously with a lot of these games dropping on there, and I do expect more and more games to attempt this. I mean, someone must have bought this game because they posted on Twitter after they discovered it, so like, how many other games could even be on the eShop right now using Nintendo songs or even assets at this point that you find when you're playing through the game? I do expect this game to be pulled down soonish as Nintendo starts to realize what's happened, but even that is seemingly taking a while. So hey, there you go, the eShop. Certainly not that Nintendo seal of quality that people would always talk about back in the day. Doesn't really apply too well to the current eShop in 2020. Next up, let's talk about this massive leak that hit the internet yesterday with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Now, we expect to see this at least demonstrated with some gameplay after the, 30 seconds of gameplay, if that, during the Xbox Series X event, their big Xbox event for third parties and all of this, where Microsoft said there was going to be gameplay there, and then there was very little gameplay there, like, at all. But we were waiting for Assassin's Creed Valhalla to have a deep dive. We figured the July 12th event from Ubisoft, which is coming up, of course, this weekend, we would see more about it. Turns out we were wrong. We actually saw quite a bit about it yesterday. Now, what happened seemingly was that just 30 minutes of gameplay was just dropped on YouTube. No clue where it came from, it just showed up. And yes, it seems like more and more people have seen it, and it's been verified that this is a developer's build seemingly for the Xbox One, but we're still kind of waiting for verification if we'll ever get it as to which system this was being played on. Could have even been like an early build for a PC that was being tested, but it's 30 minutes of gameplay. I can't show you the gameplay here because Ubisoft is already going around ripping any of it down. I can show you like the trailer they themselves put out for Assassin's Creed Valhalla while we go over this, but what was shown looked a lot like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. That's the biggest part here. It seems like it's still going to be a very large game in terms of the world itself, so I'm a little concerned about how empty parts of it will be. I did enjoy Odyssey for what it was, not necessarily, of course, the experience booster. That did kind of annoy me at times. I didn't buy it, and I definitely felt the need to at times. I will say that. It was there. The pull to go spend another $10 so that you leveled up a little faster was definitely present in that game, but the overall idea, scope, and the added RPG elements that they continue to lead into were interesting, and they were fun. So it's not like, oh, this looks like Odyssey that kind of turns me off about it. I don't know, it's something else. It was a very rough build though, by the way, so maybe if I see a more polished build of it, I'll be a little different on what I saw. But also, it didn't really look like anything next gen that would blow you away like at all. All right, so Assassin's Creed Unity came out, and that couldn't be on last gen platforms, right? That's why Rogue came out. But I looked at it and there was a ton of people on screen and they reacted differently as we went through the crowds and all of this. That at least made me go, okay, I understand this being next gen. I don't know, something about Valhalla, which of course it's also on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, but it just doesn't scream next gen, and it really looks like it's just Odyssey. So I was hoping for something maybe a little different, but this was not shown on Ubisoft's terms. I am assuming they want to show just the best possible version that they can, maybe talk about some of the features and why this game will benefit on the Series X and the PlayStation 5, and maybe show us a better gameplay stem. I mean, it wasn't bad what was happening. They were storming a castle and all this, but I don't know. It didn't feel that much different from Odyssey, despite the setting and what was happening being different. So we'll see though. Look forward to July 12th to see a bit more about that, or I'm sure since everyone is re-uploading it and mirroring this thing all over the place, you can probably go and find the gameplay, I'm sure, somewhere online if you'd like. Next up, let's talk about loot boxes once again, as the UK seemingly is starting to call for immediate action around these loot boxes being considered just straight up gambling, being under gambling regulation and laws. Now we can go over here. The BBC did have the coverage on this one, and it says the House of Lords Gambling Committee says video game loot boxes should be regulated under gambling laws. The Lords say they should be classified as games of choice, which would bring them under the Gambling Act 2005. They said if a product looks like gambling and feels like gambling, it should be regulated as gambling. Yeah, you can't really argue with that. The government must act immediately to bring loot boxes within the remit of gambling legislation and regulation. Okay, so loot boxes, of course, have been having this issue for a while where they're seen as gambling. I mean, they get to the point where they're not even hiding it, where they're like, oh, it's a slot machine. Oh, okay, yeah, I guess that's not gambling. Then that has been a concern and an issue. We've had several studies on it. We've had a lot of government intervention at times checking things out here. And we're seeing the committee here in the UK just straight up call for legislation around these loot boxes, basically just placing them under what would, I assume, drop an 18+ rating on these games if this continues to happen. Now, I have noticed that EA they're pulling back from loot boxes more so than before. Like before, those things were going into it was in Star Wars Battlefront 2. They were just dropping it everywhere, right? Now you just don't see it as much. I mean, I'm sure they'll eventually go to things like battle passes, for example, and others as they have to get away from loot boxes, but they are definitely in FIFA. Yeah, that's their biggest moneymaker. They can live without loot boxes in other games as long as FIFA continues to exist with loot boxes in their Ultimate Team. The big problem here is, of course, it's very popular in Europe and the UK, and if this were to actually happen, FIFA would all of a sudden go from like an E for everyone game to like an adults only 18+ game if they kept those loot boxes in there. I can tell you now, EA does not want this to happen. 2K does not want this to happen. I'm sure like Take-Two, any of the bigger publishers are looking at this and hoping that nothing like this takes place. It's been fought for a while. And the other thing is, if it did happen, would it then work to set a precedent for other parts of the world? So we'll see about this and keep an eye on it, but it does look like there is starting to be more and more pressure on the UK government, it seems, to take these loot boxes and place them under gambling regulations and laws. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Doom Eternal on the Switch. It kind of disappeared, right? Like, Doom Eternal came out in March. I played through on the Xbox One X. I enjoyed it. It was definitely a bit bigger in scope than 2016 Doom, and I think visually it was more impressive, but I did like it more than Doom 2016, although I think you could like the original one more than Eternal. But anyway, Doom Eternal on the Switch did disappear. Panic Button's doing it. It seemed like there were some issues because they, of course, delayed it out of 2019 into 2020, and then the Switch version just kind of went missing. That was it. Well, It looks like it's resurfaced a bit, and it looks like we're gonna find out more information pretty soon. Now, this was from Game Reactor, who spoke with Doom Eternal developers, Marty Stratton and Hugo Martin, and they said, "We'll be talking about the release date pretty soon. We haven't announced that yet. I can't do that now. It's really made great progress. Panic Button, the studio we work with on that, as I've said before, they're masters of the platform." Doom 2016 on the Switch felt a little bit like an experiment. That type of game, the mature nature of it, and the first-person shooter, how's it going to play? It was fantastic on the platform, so I think we'll take another step with Doom Eternal coming out, just because it's kind of established itself as something that really does work on the Switch. And it's such a big, fantastic game, we're really not watering it down at all. People can expect the full experience. This has been a question for a little while now. Because it disappeared, was it canceled? Are they cutting parts out? Is Panic Button having a hard time? It sounds like they just needed more time to get some of the updates kind of moved over and ready to go on the Switch. Bethesda had talked about that previously, that because they were changing some things and updating, it was just taking Panic Button longer, obviously, to then take it and translate it over to the Switch. But I will tell you this, Doom Eternal comes out on the Switch and it looks and plays as good as 2016. Doesn't even have to be better. That is going to be one of Panic Button's biggest accomplishments, because there are parts in Doom Eternal where I would walk out and I'd say, wow, this is going to play on a handheld. There are some impressive set pieces in that game. That's all I'll say without spoiling it for you. But hey, Doom Eternal's still coming. When? That's the big question. I'd like to see it before the holiday, but I'm not going to rule out something like a September release for it. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from PW Corgi saying, with the games becoming more expensive, there's even less chance that I would buy them digitally. That's something that's been brought up a lot, right? Okay, so I buy it physically and it's $70. Does that mean the digital version will become cheaper then, right? It's something that's been brought up before, even without the idea of a price increase. Okay, I'm getting it digitally, but I can't trade it in, and I have no value outside of my system's hard drive or SSD, right? Or my network connection. You can technically ban me, and then I wouldn't have any of my purchases, so it should be cheaper. And of course, publishers, developers get more money if you buy it digitally rather than go through the physical stores. It's about 55 physically for publishers and developers, and it's 70% digitally. So there is a case to be made, but the problem is they have to kind of match up with the physical copies so they don't undercut retailers, making them mad, and then they just don't carry the product. I would like to see, when we get into an all-digital future, games just get cheaper. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys. Hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today. Whether it's that random eShop game, Final Sword, using Zelda's Lullaby in their game. How did that get by Nintendo during the eShop certification process? Let me know about that one down below. Also, when do you think Doom Eternal will come out? And do you think these loot boxes should be gambling in the UK and all over the world? And then, of course, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Did you see that leaked gameplay? And what'd you think of it? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.